Yeah, that time was actually quite a funny reason. I finally figured out what was happening. That time the router just kind of died, and I thought that was the end. And what really happened was I kicked the power brick for it next to my feet. So stupid. I am the dumbest person ever. I might need to check things like that before I go live, you know? So, alright. I don't even remember where I was now. Do I have the other chat? I have the old chat open. Let me see. Somehow it saves what I had before I die out like that. Let me answer one more question from the previous chat, and then keep your questions coming while you're here. Let's see. HT800 is great if you have other headphones. Totally agree with that. I don't think it could ever be my only headphone. And I'll take one more. Let's see. What do I think of Nighthawks or Night Owls? You know, I thought the Night Owl actually sounded better than the Nighthawk. The Nighthawk's so weird. It's got so much mush that like extends out to 300 hertz or something. It's really long bass extension, too far of bass extension in the wrong direction. That's what I think of the Nighthawk. All right. Now back to the new chat. And yeah, that's right. Check out the ZMF videos for a really high budget close back. I think those are absolutely great for gaming, as long as you keep the bass out of the way, which wasn't really that much of a problem with the Atticus, I don't think, at least for me. All right. So the 598 clamp wise was not a problem, but the edge of your gigantic ears touch the driver all the time. Yeah. You know, I definitely think the HT600, well, when the pads are new anyway, have a deeper pad depth, so I don't think you'll ever have that problem with them. So if the clamp doesn't bother you, then you should be fine. So I'd say go with those. Have I ever heard of the Roland RH-A30? I actually saw you type this in the last chat. Have I heard of the Roland RH-A30 open back? Oh, another thing. So reference audio analyzer. I am not a big fan of that site. Their measurement system produces some very strange results, and they don't really line up with any kind of accepted regular response, like a Harman response or diffuse field or something like that in my experience. So I would take what they say with sort of a grain of salt. So that's sort of a problem. All right. How much stuff am I a critic about? Headphones, cars, microphones, water filters, wine, chocolate. You know, I am a craft beer guy, so I wouldn't call myself certified in like craft beer or something like that, but I definitely am a beer snob. Other things that I'm a critic of, I would say, yeah, headphones definitely. Audio in general, really. You know, anybody's audio system, speakers, although I haven't had that much experience with speakers compared to some of you guys probably. Cars for sure, I'm a big fan of always following that industry. Mics, not as much with mics as you guys might think. I just really wanted a microphone that sounded good on people's very high-end headphones on the other end of things like this live stream. Wine, no, never got into that. Chocolate, you know, that would be fun. Oh, hot sauce is definitely something that I like to experiment with. No, I'm probably not about to appear on hot ones. I don't even know if I could deal with that level of hot sauce, but different hot sauces that are like reasonable spiciness, definitely is fun to try those. Anyway, DT770, a long time you had, and then now you're getting the DT1990. They probably won't eat you up with treble. I don't think they have quite as much to be a big deal for someone who's used to the DT770. But really, you could just watch my 770 review and the 1990 review, or more accurately, maybe my Beyerdynamic comparison, the group review, and then the 1990. The 1990 is definitely, it's like a DT880 with more bass extension and probably not quite as clean treble. It's kind of, for the most part, what it's like, at least with the analytical pads on it. Is that what it's called? Yeah, I think that's what they call them. DT990 600 ohm over the HT650. No, I've actually heard the 600 ohm version of that, and wow, it's way too bright. Absolutely crazy. It might be the brightest headphone I've ever tried, except I just invented a new question for myself, I guess. DT770 600 ohm was probably the brightest thing I've ever tried. It had this giant peak, and it was like at 12K, so it was extremely painful to listen to that thing. I think the T1 and the 600 ohm DT770, how does a company let things like that out of the factory? And yeah, the K812 also just searingly painful and incredibly grainy. It really makes me wonder if the people even test these headphones sometimes. The biggest difference between the 650 and the 1990 is probably the sound signature, and the 1990 is much brighter than the 650. And also the 650 rolls off more in the bass. It's more mid-bassy. All right, let's see. Some people are adding me. Sample, this is an interesting one. Sample rate and bit depth of the music I listen to. I've had this question before, and my basic thoughts on things like DSD and 9624 are crazy. Like, I don't think that really makes a big difference, because for one thing, you are giving yourself more room for the Nyquist frequency. If you guys know, when you have a DAC, the maximum frequency you can technically achieve is half the sampling rate, but of course you have to filter the output of the DAC in order to get to that, and so it's not perfect. But I think that for most people, 44K is more than good enough. Now, 16 versus 24-bit matters a little more, I think, because 24-bit gives you more possible dynamic range, and that helps. But I don't think a sampling rate beyond 44K is going to give you significant benefits. Or maybe my hearing is not as supersonic as you guys, which probably isn't. Let's see. You can plug a 600 ohm directly into the wall and listen to 50 hertz all day, or 60 hertz here. Yeah, they do take a lot of power. Is the Atticus an upgrade over the X00? Yeah, I mean, in terms of Soundstage, because you're complaining about that constrained Soundstage, the X00. Afraid the Atticus bass is boring. Yeah, it also kind of is. You must have watched my reviews in detail there. Atticus bass is pretty mid-bassy, doesn't extend as well on the sub-bass. I thought it was a little slow, too, which is kind of weird, because I've had other people have the opposite impression. But I love the mids and the highs of the Atticus. Real surprisingly clean for a closeback, and a huge Soundstage. So I guess it's, pluses and minuses. I feel like you just can't win with closebacks. You just can't fully win. Whatever you're looking for, you can't get it all. I haven't heard one yet that can completely destroy an open back. I don't even think the HD820 can do that. I highly doubt it. I need to get one of those, though. Best closeback for outdoor use? I mean, if you're not walking somewhere where somebody is going to rob you and you want to isolate yourself, the QC35 is pretty great for being on the go, actually. Especially if you need noise cancellation along with it. Let's see. Open headphones for movies under $400. Let's see. Something I find surprisingly fun for movies is a DT770, because movies tend to be mastered better in my experience than music, and so it usually doesn't end up being overly bright. But having that sub-bass boost makes it kind of feel like you have a subwoofer on your head a little bit sometimes, which is very fun. And of course they have a good soundstage at the same time, so I feel like that's an interesting pick. That's easily under $400. That's pretty fun for movies. People are going to be confused, like, I thought it was too bright for you. But you know what? It is fun to listen to movies, I think, with the 770. It's pretty interesting. Let's see. Fidelio X2, some people are saying, for movies. And that's kind of grainy of a headphone, though. So it's pluses and minuses there. But yeah, I can see that sound signature also being pretty fun. There's an open back TH900. I don't know. Why didn't I hear about this? Someone's got to link me to that. I didn't see that. Cal to THX00 worth the upgrade cost. Yeah, it is, if you like that kind of sound signature. HIFIMAN Ananda on ratings. Yeah, the frequency response tends to be fairly impressive on HIFIMANs, generally. Sometimes they're a little bright for me, but I'm sure that one, if it's like the Edition X, I wouldn't be surprised that I would probably like that too. I've not heard good things about the LCD XC. Now, I actually asked somebody on Reddit earlier today if they would send me their XC, so I guess we'll figure out. We'll see what happens with that. I always thought that was like the worst sounding one of the line. It was really expensive. And then if you look at Audeze Reveal, you'll see they apply a ton of EQ to it. So I think if you add those things up together, you'll see it's iffy. Headphone to keep you warm in the winter? I'm sorry, that's hilarious. Yeah, I think the P7 will probably fit that the best. It's got kind of a tight clamp when you first get it, and those pads are nice and cozy in terms of warmth. That's funny. HE1000 Auteur or LCDX for a variety of music. So basically everything and gaming. So you need a headphone that does everything well. I think I would be, wow, that's tough. Those are all very good. I think it depends mostly on price there and your own sound signature preferences, because all of those are very good headphones. But I don't have enough experience with the Auteur in particular to really compare against the other two. I think you've narrowed it down, at least. Can I imagine Sennheiser making planars? I would like to see Sennheiser make a planar. That could be cool. Clearly, Audeze has shown that planars are pretty legit, and so has HIFIMAN, except for their build quality. Planars can definitely do some pretty incredible things for headphones. So I don't know. I'm not even sure why Sennheiser has only stuck with dynamics so far. I guess we'll see what happens. I'd like to see that, though. Am I going to review any speakers? I really don't have the kind of damping I need in the rooms that I'm in to properly review speakers. Interestingly enough, after going to Z's place and realizing how dead his room is, he's got a great apartment for testing speakers like that. I'm not sure why, because his walls are very flat and like I forget exactly what the material is that makes that. They look like bricks, but white. I don't know. But for some reason, that room's real dead. Real dead. And like it sounds like a studio. I was like, how? That doesn't make sense. But, if I clap in here, it's even this tiny room, it's just that reverb tail is like a million milliseconds, way too long for speaker testing. So I may not know as much about speakers, but I certainly know that I don't have the rooms that I would need to properly test them. Wow, that's a lot of questions went by in this time. Blah 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 blah. Which for you is a good alternative for the 553 for a more enjoyable rock experience under $200? I would probably say DT770, because that's a very different sound signature. But for rock, which tends to be more mid-centric, I don't think the V shape will be quite as bad as to like pierce your ears apart unless the recording's really awful. So I would give that a try. That'd be the alternative, I think. Z1R, a chill out headphone. The Z1R has a aggressive, powerful bass region. I wouldn't say it's a chill out headphone. Let's see. I think I skipped some people's questions from earlier, and I'm going back. Blah 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 blah. You know what? I'm gonna go. This is moving fast. Let's see. At this point, if you really want me to see your question, there is the super chat. I don't want you guys to have to pay me for stuff, but it's just hard for me to fully answer questions like this with so many people in here. I'm gonna pick something that I like. Let's see. I'm on a long delay. I shouldn't be. Let me see something. Oh, no, that's not that long of a delay. At least on my screen. Let's see. What amp am I using to power the LCDs? I'm still using a Magni 3. And I really need to get rid of this Modi multi-bit, because I know that it measures like a piece of junk, I'm sure. Probably worse than the Modi 2. So I'm trying to get a D30 at some point. The topping stuff seems to measure really well. I know that people are like, no, subjectivity is the only way with DAC and amps, but for me as a reviewer, I'm trying to remain as impartial as possible. So the best thing I can do is get something that's, objectively measures as good as possible, and then just plug stuff into that. The Magni 3, as far as I understand, is a pretty well measuring amp, but however, it does tend to have some harmonic distortion at high volumes apparently. But I can't get the topping A30 because the output impedance is too high to really accurately test headphones on that. So I'm kind of in a pickle there. So I think I would have to get the D30 at least as a DAC to power the Magni 3, and it's probably what I'm going to get unless Topping comes out with new stuff. And I know they're always coming out with new stuff. Totally lost where I was again. Let's see. All-time favorite movie. I really don't have one. I mean, the stuff I've watched the most is definitely Star Wars. I'm totally a Star Wars buff. I used to watch episode 4 like once a day when I was like 12 years old or 13. It's pretty funny. But I guess that was my classically favorite movie. But I mean, I'm working my way through all the classic movies right now since I built a home theater. So I'll have to update you on that in a year or something once I get through a bunch of the ones I've totally missed out on. Most overrated and most underrated headphones. Ooh, that's difficult. Oh, overrated's easy. M50X. That probably won't surprise anybody. Because they were actually at a time, especially the original, the M50, a very good headphone for the price, but that has carried through with them too long, and they've really been replaced now by so many other options on the market. At the time, they were pretty good as far as I understand it, but definitely a ridiculously overrated headphone. And yeah, you should tell Tile, because what is he doing having that on the Wall of Fame? I still don't understand that. And I have heard about Topping releasing a new amp and DAC. Yeah, I think I saw that on the subreddit. I think someone must have posted that. So we'll see what Topping does. Clearly, ASR is always gushing about their awesome measurements. Who knows? Some people have expressed some doubt with Amir being accurate. But then again, why would he fake measurements on such an expensive rig? Wouldn't someone who owns something like that, access to that kind of equipment, want to measure it as accurately as possible? Why would you fake that? I mean, unless he's being paid by Topping, which, you know, he kind of is, because I know they send him stuff for free. So, yeah. But I'm not surprised that Shit Audio is producing crappy stuff, because they have been shilled so hard on Head-Fi, and it's not even funny. People like NWAV Guy have been... That is such a mess of a story. I won't go into it, but basically, anything you say that's bad about Shit Audio on Head-Fi, you'll be banned, like, instantly. And that's one reason why I hate Head-Fi, because they have sponsored brands, and as soon as you say something bad about a sponsored brand, you're done. You just get banned. It's just stupid. They just shut you down. And that's one thing about Shit Audio that makes me really skeptical of them as a company as well at the same time. So anyway, that's kind of like ASR versus Shit Audio at this point. It's an interesting developing story. Do I like any of the Audio-Technica open backs? AD2000X is probably my favorite that I've heard so far. I briefly heard the ADX5000, I think is what it's called now, but not long enough to really know for sure if I liked it or not. But I think that generally Audio-Technica's open backs, in terms of a technical perspective, just don't perform as well as a lot of the other stuff out there in the market right now. It's a relatively affordable headphone that compares with higher end ones. I just reviewed one. The Creative Arvana Live is surprisingly amazing for being so cheap. Could you show us your home cinema room or make a tour? It's actually a townhouse, not an apartment now. It used to be an apartment back in the day with the last place I was at. I don't really want to make a tour, but I will tell you I have a Vizio M55 E0 right now. 4K HDR TV. I hopped on the Zeos bandwagon and bought a Denon receiver. It's an S730H, and it's powering a ELAC B6 fronts, ELAC C5 center, and Mica MB42X rears. And then I have Pioneer. I've got the exact model right now, but I have Pioneer Atmos speakers on the top of the fronts, and I also have a BIC F12 sub which I know is also a big Zeos favorite. And actually, it sounds pretty good together. Obviously, it has to be calibrated a little bit. And I really like the receiver. Denon is really cool. I just kind of bought it because Z thought it was really good. And actually, I kind of do trust him for home theater stuff because he seems to know what he's talking about for home theater stuff. But for headphones, I don't know. For speakers, I don't know. But he's definitely right about Denon's on, I love the interface. There's a billion options, and it took me like weeks to go through all of them. I love that about, audio equipment like that. Anyway, yes, SBAF definitely shills shit audio stuff as well, big time, big time. I don't. That's why I'm so skeptical. We've got SBAF on the bandwagon. We've got Headfi on the bandwagon, and like anybody who says anything bad is basically immediately kicked off those forums, both of them. And it's like, what kind of a forum is that? So, as much as people are like, no, ASR can't possibly be right about it, why would somebody with an audio precision analyzer, you know how much those things cost? A lot of money. Why would he try to fake stuff on that? As an engineer, it doesn't compute in my head. So I wouldn't be surprised if shit audio was as bad as it's been measuring lately. Topping could have bad quality control. It's possible. It's possible. But I was really surprised at the measurements I saw. I agree. Droid Cam. I didn't try Droid Cam with HD yet. I think one of the problems with that is I'm so used to using this webcam that mounting my phone on top of the monitor would be really bizarre. And I can't figure out a really good way to do that quite yet. But I'll probably eventually get to it if you keep bugging me, most likely. I'll probably just upgrade to a real like camera at some point. That's what I really need to do. Let's see. With usage, iPhone becomes slow. Headphones lose their charm. Well, yeah, that sometimes in this hobby I've just been like, why do I keep doing this? But then you guys show up and are like, we want a review of this. We want a review of this. And I'm like, I guess I have to keep doing this. So, yeah. Headphones only lose their charm so much for me because I'm kind of past the point of being like, ooh, I wonder what that sounds like. I've heard everything from the KST75 to an SR009 now, so there's almost nothing left for me to wonder about what headphones can do, and it is still pretty amazing after hearing all of that. But yes, I suppose any hobby gets old eventually, but I guess I'm still doing this one. Let's see. Do I still use the HD800s a lot? I think I'm going to keep them around because, and I thought about selling them a bunch of times. My original plan was to sell them and keep the LCD2 Classic, but now I'm not so sure because there's a really good comparison point with the HD800s in terms of Soundstage, obviously, and everyone knows what they sound like. Well, okay, not everybody, but a lot of people in this hobby have probably heard them by now. They're kind of like the next thing that people should hear at one point after the HD600 is the HD800. And so because of that, they make a good comparison point for other reviews, just like my 660S does. But right now I haven't been using them much because I got the Audezes. And that's definitely more of my preference on sound signature. Am I getting the new iPhone? No. I actually have, and I think I've shown you this before, this is a Pixel 2 XL with a... what's it called? What is this called? Oh, Distronic case. I always buy Distronic cases, just a TPU case. I'm more of an Android guy, but this year, yeah, there's no headphone jack. That's right. There's no headphone jack on this. I don't care, though. I don't really use my phone for audio on the go anyway, very much. I do have the dongle, regardless, and it works okay. Let's see. But what I was going to say was, yeah, I mean, come on. On one hand, what is Apple thinking going with the iPhone XS Max being, at least $1,100? But at the same time, people bought the iPhone X and it was $1,000. Why not charge up to $1,500 for the max storage of the iPhone XS? They'll still buy it. And I just can't. I hate that. But I think this is finally the breaking point. I mean, I think I'm not the only one who thinks that the pricing that Apple's doing this year is probably going to be the breaking point for phones, and a lot of people are going to switch to Android now who have been thinking about it for a couple of years now, most likely. But I'm looking at the OnePlus 6T now. I know it doesn't have a headphone jack, but again, that doesn't matter to me. The biggest thing that matters to me on phones is RAM right now on Android. 8 gigs of RAM is a hard spec that I require this year, because I cannot deal with the number of cold starts on my Pixel 2 XL right now. Stuff needs to stay in RAM, and the only way to do that is to have more RAM. So I'm probably going to get the OnePlus 6T. Yep. Not the iPhone. Plus the pricing is way better on those things anyway. Let's see. Magni 3 has intermittent humming on yours. That's weird. Mine doesn't. You want to look into ground loops. I've heard some people had issues with, depending on what they were plugged into, ground loops. But you'd think that, an audio brand would have, tested in every possible way to make sure that that doesn't happen. But you never know, because it's shit audio now. Yeah. Your criticism of the Magni 3 was deleted by staff. Told you. I wasn't making that up. That's what happens. You can't say anything bad about any brand that's sponsored. In fact, Jude even posted measurements trying to show that the H800S specifically didn't have significantly higher THD than the HD800, which, Tiles Rig's not going to lie, but I'd still find it weird that for some reason that didn't show up at all on the HD800S that Jude measured. That issue. Wow, I'm spilling water everywhere. It's great. Will the LCD 2 Classic go on sale again, and should I buy it? To answer that, yes, you should buy it, and I would also wait for a sale again, and I think there's a good chance it'll probably go on another sale. You just gotta watch Audeze's Twitter carefully. I do anyway, because it's just headphone porn. They post some awesome shots of the headphones all the time, and I never get tired of looking at Audeze LCDs. They're so cool looking. Let's see. Opinion on Monoprice M1060C, since it's on the top of the wire cutter list. Yeah, I'm really curious about that, but I haven't seen too many people who even have one. If anybody has an M565C, wow, that's a hard name to say, you should definitely get in touch with me and send me one, because wire cutter isn't necessarily as bad as people say it is, but because I interact with a woman who does a lot of that stuff, who does those reviews or is part of the panel basically for Wirecutter on Twitter, and she seems to have fairly good reasons for choosing certain things over other things, but it's not always sound. That's why some strange stuff ends up on top of their lists compared to what you guys may expect. But there are reasons. But I definitely want to try that. Oh man, that's a lot of comments. Let's see. What was my criticism of the Magni 3? Supposedly when it's cranked up high enough, it'll actually start to add some treble because of the harmonic distortion with it. But the reason why I don't have a topping amp is because, is because the output impedance is too high to handle every impedance of headphone or IEM that I may want to review. Which leads into this question: can Magni 3 power 600 ohms? Yeah, definitely. Now, here's another problem. This impedance is not by itself the reason why a headphone is hard to drive. It's a combination of impedance and efficiency of the driver. So that's something too. Whenever you see specs on like sound cards or motherboards that are like, this can drive 600 ohms, that is complete BS, because it has to also tell you what efficiency at 600 ohms it can drive. And ideally it should give you the power output in milliwatts, not this can handle this impedance. That's a very vague way of describing how powerful something is. Too vague. That's how they get you. Pixel 2 XL has been kind of a letdown. I've heard a lot of people had major issues with the battery, and I haven't had that problem, but the 4 gigs of RAM is what's killing me right now. LCD XC versus ZMF. I want to do that. I don't have any ZMFs right now, though, but I'm trying to get an XC in-house at the moment. Has there ever been a situation where the graphs didn't seem to line up with what you were hearing? That's a very good question. That has happened. I'm trying to think of the best example of this. Probably the actually, I'll give you a really interesting example from my early days of reviewing. The MDR 7506. I bought one of those. Actually, it was the MDR V6 at the time, because that's the one that Tile had frequency response on. And I bought it because if you look at the graph of it on interfidelity's compensation, it looks almost like it's flat, just a straight line. And I bought it, and I was like, this is the brightest, most harsh thing I've ever heard in my life at that point. So I wanted an alternative to the M50. And then I realized, oh, never mind. Later on, I was like, interfidelity's stock, it's called the independent of direction curve, was nothing like what I preferred, which I found out later was more like the Harman curve. So that's definitely a situation where the graph didn't line up at all with what I was hearing. It tried to convince me that a flat line on Tile's graph was actually flat and all my other headphones were wrong, but eventually I was like, nah. Alright, anyway. Blah, blah, blah. Do I agree with Z on the JDS element stack being excellent? I haven't heard that. Again, I don't do amps or DACs very much, except for like feature set, and I'll look at the measurements as well, but I'm not very good at reviewing amps, so I just don't tend to do that. What's the best female vocal you've ever heard? One that's really, really pleasant for me to listen to lately that I'll give you an example of, and this is definitely not audiophile music, but Cosmic Gate's track called Flatline has a awesome female vocal, a little interlude in it that I think just sounds stunning on good headphones. How come we haven't seen any images of the Pixel 3? We have. Yeah, there were a lot of Pixel 3 leaks. Are you arguing with somebody else? I have no idea what's happening there. But the Pixel 3, I am probably going to skip on because I keep seeing that it has 4 gigs of RAM. And I'm like, really? This is 2018. It should have at least 6 gigs of RAM. Oh, the conspiracy theory that there's another Pixel 3 or something. Oh yeah, that's hilarious. I don't know who started that, but please. New mass drop on Monday. Oh yeah, the ES95X. Yeah, that's. Now I'm sad I bought the LCD2 Classic. I wish I had been able to try that too. But then again, I really like the Audeze also. Oh, I can't buy everything at once. I hope somebody does and gives me impressions, because I want to know what that thing sounds like. I always wanted to try the ESP950. Never actually heard one of those. Most impressive headphone for under $1,200. Right now, that's the LCD-X. And you can get it in the Creator Edition, which doesn't come with a case, for about exactly $11.99, I think. Let's see. We do need more RAM, though. Seriously, on the Android phones, it's ridiculous. Yeah, that's when you'll notice it. I was looking at all those tests, looking at, Phone Buff does those. I don't like their robot, but that's besides the point. Speed test videos between the OnePlus 6 and like literally everything else, and it's unbelievable the difference. And yeah, that's right. I think I did see the XDA frame time tests too. Those are really good. And it's not even close. It's just not even close. Like, OnePlus destroys everybody else right now. It's partially because of the RAM, partially because of they're not using such a heavy skin. ZMF Icon versus the LCD XC as a daily driver. I don't know, because I would have to have heard the LCD XC at length first, and I'm hoping to do that soon. But as of this Q&A, I have not. How do headphone reviewers say a particular headphone is good for female vocals? Okay, you need to make sure that the lower mids are not recessed like crazy, because you need that warmth in the voice. And also, you definitely need to be careful with the sibilance region. You don't want female vocals who have a ton of to have to DS every song in order to listen to them on headphones. DT990. But that's definitely important. And then, of course, ultimate resolution detail in the mids and highs. Very, very, very important. I would say those are reasons. Those are the things I would look for in a female vocal headphone. Do you need an amp for the HD6XX? Yes, it's the same driver as HD650. It's not something you want to run off of like a MacBook. It'll probably be okay, but it won't get very loud. Let's see. Oh yeah, wait for the Black Friday sale for the ESP950. Good point. I remember that from, was it like last year? I'm pretty sure they had those. Yeah, it's very fast shipping. Probably faster than mass drop. At this point, yeah, you're probably right. If you order it now, you'll probably still get the one from the Black Friday sale faster. You're surprised I'm not familiar with IEMs. Yeah, I'm sure that is a rabbit hole. But I don't know. I just don't have that much experience with them. It's not that I haven't been interested in them, though. But I felt like, since I'm mostly a home listener or listening at work, that's why over years became kind of the standard thing. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, TouchWiz definitely lost on the frame time test. That I saw. But that's interesting that OnePlus couldn't match that, huh? Faster than mass drop equals everything, yeah, in terms of shipping speed. Yeah, good point. Let's see. Would married folk enjoy this hobby less because of obvious reasons? I mean, I'm not going to be sexist or anything, but, in general, if you're married and you're spending as much as some people do on this hobby, then it is possible that you'll be perceived as being a little bit negligent to where your money really needs to be going. Let's see. LCDX Creator Package or the HD800s for the same price. I'm still going to take the LCDX on that one. That's just my preference, though. But some people may like the HD. Some people actually like the HD800 totally stock. I don't really understand, but I would go with the LCDX. But I would not buy it used unless it's got the 3-year warranty at least. I'm still wary of Audeze's driver failures, even though it seems like they've gotten better with that. I would still make sure you have an Audeze under warranty. Looks like you're buying new though, so you'll be okay. Thoughts on the Focal Clear? I was talking about that earlier. I felt like there was a spike at 10K that was really annoying, but it was really narrow too, so it's like really bizarre metallic, like tone to everything. Apparently I might be the only person who thinks that though. So yeah, it seems like everyone else loves them. Or a lot of people like the LX now as well. The Mass Drop Elir or something like that. I haven't tried that though. How would I rank the LCD line? Ooh, that's a good question. Right now, LCD 4 is the best. LCDX would be the second best. And of the LCD 2s and 3s that I've heard, I'd put them under the LCD 2 Classic, which may seem very weird to people, but if you've ever seen my LCD 3 review, it was pretty scathing because I thought it was not a good value for $2,000. For some reason, that unit that I heard, the LCD 3, was just pretty grainy. And it's weird because there are a lot of LCDs, like the ones I have next to me now, the LCDX and 2 Classic, that are way cleaner. And it still confuses me. So that's how I would rank that. Standing desk. Yeah, I have thought about that. We'll see. Maybe with the new job, we'll see if I can get one. It obviously depends on whether they would be willing to pay for it. Anyone heard of the Sonos Faber Prima? No. Sonos Faber sounds familiar, but not the Prima headphones. You're one of the only ones who likes the HD700 without EQ. You're not alone. I've known some people who like that, but it just confuses me. Yeah, I'm going to start a new job at the end of this month. Hopefully my wrist holds up during that. Why aren't open headphones advertised to parents who want to hear when children wake from naps? That's quite a valid observation. Never thought of that. But that would definitely work. Atticus for female metal vocals. I mean, the Atticus has a bit of a recession in the upper mid, so it depends on whether you want the vocals to be forward also. Generally, I would agree that those are fine, but It depends on, I think it's more a personal preference at that point. It may or may not work for you. Let's see, what else we got here? Is there an audible difference between USB and optical? Now we're getting to the part of the live Q&A where we get the really good questions, like cables completely changed my headphone. Kidding. It depends more on the DAC's implementation, I think, than necessarily USB versus optical itself. And not even the DAC itself, actually, but rather the transport for the USB and optical inputs. I try to not use USB, and I actually try to use optical as much as possible because it electrically isolates the DAC from the computer better. Obviously, USB may or may not carry power along the cable, so I like the idea that optical is just light and it's not prone as much, or at least maybe not at all. It could be crazy, but that's why I tend to try to use optical as much as possible. And I don't go for super high sampling rate and bit rate. So the limitation of 192K 24-bit is way more than high enough for me for optical. Is Soundstage overrated? Soundstage is never going to be as good as speakers. I don't think there's any headphone that's going to be quite the same as speakers. Soundstage. So, it can only get so good. If you think the HD800 is not good enough, then I don't have much else to recommend to you except that you should probably try speakers. Headphones with the biggest soundstage I've ever heard, still the HD800, I think. But I think most headphones that are kilobuck or multi-kilobuck, in my experience, have had at least a very good soundstage. Whether it's wider or imaging is better, it varies, but generally, soundstage in that price range is just very good compared to mid-fi. So people saying the HD800 is the best soundstage ever is a little bit more debatable in my book. I feel like most headphones at that point are still really good at soundstage, to the point where the HD800 soundstage wouldn't be the main reason why it would hold you back necessarily for me. So that's something I don't see people saying much, but that's something I think. Near-field studio monitors better bang than headphones? You mean bang for the buck? Yeah, actually, probably. I mean, the LSR 305s I have tried and are awesome. And getting that level of sound quality on headphones actually does require quite a bit more money than that. So that is kind of an interesting point. But like I was saying earlier, the biggest problem with anything speaker related is you gotta have a good room. And I don't have an amazing room with excellent acoustic treatment, and you will never quite get there with speakers without having like a studio compared to headphone listening. Let's see. DT770 32 ohm or the HD380 Pro for the office with no amp. I think both of those will work. I mean, I'm wearing the 380 right now, but I think if I remember right, it's probably a little easier to drive the 770 32 ohm. But I would still go with the K553 actually, as long as it fits you properly, because it's also very easy to drive, and I like that overall better than those other two options you just gave me. Let's see. Why does everybody hate the Fidelio X2? Except for Zeos. Well, because it's one of those headphones that has a very fun sound signature, is usually how we describe it. But when you're me and you're spending that much and the level of resolution is so much worse than things like the HD600, it's kind of annoying in that respect. That's why you get a lot of divided opinions, I think, on the Fidelio X2. I've been meaning to review those forever. Someone probably should eventually send me one, but at this point, I don't know if I care enough because it's kind of not the current flavor. I don't think as many people are buying it anymore than a couple of years ago. Why are most headphones black and masculine looking? Who do I talk to about beautiful headphones? I would get up and show you my Bang & Olufsen H6, which is awesome. I tend to like the matte black aesthetic, full MKB HD, except without the red. So that doesn't really bother me very much, but I'm not sure what the marketing rationale is on colors for headphones. I feel like consumer-oriented headphones are always more colorful, and our audiophile stuff tends to be more bland, but not always. A really good example is ZMF. Wow. You ever seen those ZMF woods? That is super cool. I am definitely a fan of the really beautiful woodwork on some of those high-end headphones. Do you need an expensive amp to drive the 800? Pretty much everybody told me your amp is crap because it doesn't cost at least $1,000. So therefore, your HD800 review is completely useless. And yet, every time I plug it into something different, it is a little bit more transparent in showing the difference between sources. I agree on that. But I don't think there's any amp out there that'll change the HD800 enough to the point where I will like it without EQ. So take that for what it's worth. Many great headphones are fatiguing. I can't understand why people still give them great reviews. Don't you want to hear them for a long time? Wow, join the club. I wish more people would say things like that. It's part of why I love the Audeze sound. It's so much less fatiguing. I don't want to listen to a T1 all day. I can't listen to it for more than 2 minutes. And why does it get rave reviews? Don't know. That's why I started this channel. Tell you guys what I actually hear, not what some manufacturer is trying to pay me to say. Do I think the HD58X is close to the HD660? Oh my god. This is what happens when Z Refuse has too much of a impact on his audience. You cannot take his impressions on sound as seriously as people like the guys that are writing for headphone.com right now, or Tile, or me. Even Josh is a pretty good reviewer now too. You cannot take things that Zeos says to heart on sound, because he explains more, has explained more to most people that his approach to headphones is basically like, does it try to achieve what it's trying to achieve, which is weird, but I understand what he's trying to say. But he has made so many comparisons like that already with the HD600, because everyone is looking for an HD600 that's cheaper. And I haven't heard anything that's quite the same. And a lot of it has to do with comparing the detail. That's one of the bigger problems here. And detail is harder to pick up in general for people who haven't heard a lot of headphones. Not that he hasn't, but, I feel like he's just trying to get more affiliate link clicks. Ooh. Maybe that was a little too harsh, but I would not be surprised if the 58X was anywhere near quite the same resolution as the 600 or the 660, which, by the way, also the 660 is not like a whole new world from the 600 either. So I will have to reserve my final judgment for when I hear them, but I would not take that advice to heart. Let's see what else we got here. People who are older are more likely to afford high-end headphones, hence the brightness. That is a very interesting observation I've heard from many people too, and I still wonder about that. I wonder if that's what Beyerdynamic is trying to do, but I would have to ask them directly, and I highly doubt they would admit to that, because I know that they say they try to tune their headphones based on diffuse field, and they have their own diffuse field room too at the company. So, but I still wonder about that too. 2 headphones that complement each other, or one more expensive headphone that can do both types of sounds. It depends on how much you care about that. I mean, I will always go, now that I've been in the hobby for so long, not that long, but longer than some of you guys maybe, I would always go with the one headphone that does more route, because I've tried. It actually exists. I thought that didn't exist at all, but it is possible to find one headphone that does multiple things good, or very well at least. And, you save money in the process, especially because, the cost of affording many decent headphones in the mid-fi range is still way less than one really good headphone. Do I agree with Tile the HT800 respond better to bass boost than the 800S? I think so. I felt like when I demoed the 800S last time that the bass definitely didn't sound quite as clean. So I believe so, but I've never had, full disclosure, an 800S at home to really deep dive into that. But it did seem that way. It did seem like there was more harmonic distortion on the 800S. There's nothing more beautiful than the HT600 speckled marble. You mean kitchen countertop? That's what everyone else seems to call them. How do the HT700s compare to the 800s? And they both got peaks in the low treble. HT800 a little bit less so. But I have never directly compared those. That is an interesting question. So I couldn't tell you for sure. A lot of the people who like the really bright headphones aren't musicians. Yeah. Audeze actually hands out the some of these headphones. They're LCDX, LCD MX4. They try to hand them out to people who work in recording studios, and apparently they're well liked. They're well received by audio engineers. I know there's quite a few. This probably doesn't matter, but in this context of being an audiophile, but there are quite a few. I've seen quite a few electronic music producers using things like the LCDX to mix and master, or at least as, obviously a complement to monitors. Can't replace speaker monitors for that. Anyway, let's see. Why are people using so much money on amps and cables and to change some decibels in the frequency response, but disrespect the use of EQ? I ask myself that question every day, and I don't have an answer. I just can't believe the price to performance ratio on trying to change a headphone just from amps, and especially from cables, because that usually is just a pointless thing to do. Blows me away. Ever tried headphones that are so good they made your jaw drop? I can't tell you the number of times I've cursed in amazement from listening to the LCDX, and before that the 2 Classic. Just awesome. There are just some parts of music where you're just like, wow. Like that's basically what I do when I'm listening to music, and it's just like, wow, really? It's just incredible. I think most people in here can probably identify with that the first time they've heard, a really good headphone on their favorite song. Audeze has definitely done that to me a lot lately, for sure. I have a favorite headphone for metal. Bonus point. It's for closed and open picks. I don't know. That was funny. Sorry. DT770 and K712. That's really interesting because the 712 is relatively bright, but I can see it's sort of like warmth. It's like low mid warmth being pretty interesting for metal. Definitely DT770 is up there. I would say Atticus, A900X, awesome for metal. For open back, these Audezes handle everything really well for me, so I would take most of the Audeze LCDs too. Very good for metal. I was definitely testing that recently. Let's see. In order to get better soundstage air imaging and treble, you usually sacrifice bass. Not always. That's why planars are awesome, because they're open back. But it is possible to have very good sub-bass extension and clean treble all at the same time. That's why I'm tending to like them so much. I'll take some more questions. I'm going to be doing this for another maybe like 10 minutes or so. So, and here comes the chat probably bombarding me. But we'll see. That's my take on the LCD2 Classic versus the Aeonflow Open. Great question. When I heard them both at New York and Can Jam, I thought they were both very good, and they're a little different of a target. Now, I don't have any impressions on dynamics and soundstage, but I will tell you the Aeonflow Open has a distinct mid-bass hump to it, and it doesn't have the 6K kind of peakiness as the Aeon Flow closed, and has some 10K peakiness though, but it has some really good air and much cleaner treble than the closed variant, which really surprised me. Might be the best MrSpeakers I've heard. Yes, better than the Ether C Flow, and which isn't as good as Zeus really says it is, by the way. But there's kind of like, which flavor would you like between those two? And I definitely want to get an Aeon Flow open at some point to compare them, because it's actually a very good headphone, and one of the best I think I've heard for an open planar. It is surprising, because generally I'm not the biggest fan of MrSpeakers, actually. You have the Sennheiser Orpheus. Really? Really? Are you sure? You sure it's not a knockoff? No, I'm kidding. That would be crazy. I've always wanted to hear the Orpheus. That's one of the things that I'm definitely lacking. I've not heard the Orpheus, and I know some of you guys have. I'm sure it's great. And I'm sure it's not worth 50 grand either. Let's see. LCD2 Classic be good for gaming. It's okay. It's a little more closed in than the higher end Audezes. It definitely has good imaging though, and it's not a bad soundstage, but the HT800 would be better for gaming, technically. You're not going to have as fun and frequency response at all for listening to music, but the soundstage is better overall, I'd say. LCD-X or HE1000? Yeah, you know what? The LCD-X is like closer to my personal preferences than the HE1000. Both, it actually kind of reminded me, though. The transparency and the speed of the treble on this thing, the LCD-X, is so good that it really reminded me of my time with the HE1000, but it doesn't cost $3,000. So I think if you're on the fence and you've heard the HE1000 and you like that kind of detail and you know that kind of resolution, definitely give the LCD-X a shot, because I think you're really going to like it. Listen to stuff loud. Any complaints from the neighbors? Yeah, with the home theater. I'm lucky because I have an end unit. So actually, behind me is where the room would be with the home theater in it, and my neighbors are in front of where I'm sitting. So there's actually sort of a buffer wall. So it's not really that bad as you might think. I tend not to listen to speakers as loud as I do with headphones. I think that's probably most people. That's kind of the danger of hearing damage through headphones, in fact. Anyway, you want to try Audezes, but you've listened to some recessed treble headphones and always felt the urge to EQ it. Actually, the LCD-X may change your mind because it's probably the brightest LCD. It's already got quite a bit of energy from 6 to 20K, more so than I think probably most of the other LCDs. Aeon closed. I talked about those a little bit in the Icon versus Atticus review. Not really my favorite headphone. It's very good from a frequency response standpoint, but I think it suffers otherwise. The soundstage is, the dynamics are really compressed, and it costs a lot for that. Let's see. Is the LCD 2C darker up top than the PM3? Ooh, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. I'd say in some ways they're actually kind of similar. That's a really interesting observation. They are kind of similar, but the LCD2 Classic definitely has more, a lot more resolution. PM3 always sounded sort of grainy to me, but I liked the way it presents music, but it's just kind of dead in the air region, whereas this kind of has that data. It's kind of like an HD 650 of the Audezes. But not quite as transparent as like an LCD-X. Let's see. Am I going to RMAF? I do go to can jams and shows. Right now I only go to the HeadFi Philly area meet yearly, and I don't normally venture out that far, so I'm not going to be going to RMAF this time. Sorry. Maybe in the future though, probably. I'm not really the traveling type, but New York I can definitely do. And I did that earlier this year, and I'm sure, wow, this year went fast. That means I'm probably getting old, and next year I'll probably be going to New York Can Jam again too. So you guys know where to find me. If you really want to meet me and talk about headphones in person, you probably will find me at New York Can Jam next year. I live in South New Jersey, so it's not too bad of a trek getting up there. Let's see. And yeah, and it's always amazing when everyone asks where you're from, because I see like every country, I swear, in the world here. Oh, hey Josh, I didn't even realize you were here. I'm going to end the stream in like 5 minutes, so you guess you showed up just in time. Maybe I'll go over a little bit. It seems like I have so many. Well, we still have 84 people watching. That's great. Anyway, it's amazing how many different countries you guys are all from, and I appreciate all the viewership. It's pretty awesome. Thoughts on Argon Mark III? Haven't heard the Mark III yet. Does the LCD2C work well for classical music? Now, that is a very interesting question, because it's quite subdued at the highs. And I feel like a lot of people who are listening to classical music are more inclined to want DT880. That kind of sound signature. Bright and like not too much bass and clean highs, but also forward highs. And that's definitely not what the LCD2 Classic has. In fact, I would say for classical music, you're probably better off with a HIFIMAN signature. That is a good observation. Donate headphones to Tile so we can do reviews from the RV. I told him in a comment, I think on his last post he ever made, please make a vlog channel at least. I mean, come on. We want to see what the travels are if you're going to retire. That would be cool. South Jersey, what exit? Let's see. I don't want to be too specific, but I'm within Burlington County. I'll tell you that. Let's see. Egypt. Wow, that's cool. I just cannot believe how many different countries you guys are from. Best headphone to gift to Trump, so he stops twittering and starts listening. I'm not gonna go political on the chat, but that's funny. I like that. Portugal. Wow, that's cool. Is hardstyle as big in the Netherlands as Americans think it is? I always ask people that. South Korea, Poland. I am partly Polish, so that's pretty cool. Apparently, part of my family is from, I think, Warsaw, which I think is properly pronounced Warszawa or something like that. I don't speak Polish very well. South Korea, yeah. Because the headphone industry there is pretty big. Belgium, wow. That's incredible. North in Canada, yeah. Is it hard to get headphones in Canada? I actually don't know. I wonder if it's any more difficult in Canada to do this hobby. North Korea, really? Because that's cool if you're managing to watch this from North Korea. Wow. That's kind of impressive. Warszawa? Okay. Nice. Do I burn in my new headphones, and how long? No, I actually used to do that, but I find that burn-in doesn't do much. It takes, like, if anything, thousands of hours. May have changed my original DT80 a little bit, but then again, that could have just as easily been just the pads wearing in and changing the sound, because pads change the sound a lot. Oh, here's a good question. Have you found the circular pads have any impact on Soundstage? Cannot fathom why manufacturers would use them over oval pads. Yeah, you know what? I wonder that too. I don't know why Beyerdynamic keeps using circular pads, because the shape of your ear is not a circle. It doesn't really bother me that much when they're big enough of pads, but I'm not sure if that has any impact on the Soundstage. Have you seen how weirdly shaped the HD800's pads are? It still has a great Soundstage. I'm not sure if the pad shape is really going to affect that in terms of like circle versus oval. There are other factors at play there, I believe. I could be wrong. It's not difficult to get cans in Canada when you make the risk of all your music turning out in French. That's great. No headphone stores around here. Yeah, no headphone stores in the US either. Why are so many reviewers praising the M1060s if it's so flawed? Or is it biased because they've got free units from Monoprice? I really am so confused by the M1060 now. I feel like I need to get like a version, whatever they're on now, 3 or 4 or whatever, to see if they've ever fixed that flaw with the design, with the ringing, which some people apparently don't notice at all, which is good because then you've got a cheap planar that you like. Good for you. I really don't. I don't want to tell people you have to like this. That's the dumbest thing ever. But I will say what I really think, and I really don't like the unit that I reviewed. Someone on SBF put oval HM5 pads on the HD800 and it fixed the peaks but killed the soundstage. You know what's funny? I actually tried taking HD600 pads once and putting them like up against the openings after I removed the pads on the 800 and just put it on like that. And it sounded a lot more similar to the HD600, but it also had absolutely no soundstage whatsoever either, which I always find is a really interesting effect when you play around with the 800 like that. I'm not sure why, but obviously pads have a huge impact on sound. It's something that a lot of people are missing because they usually are replacing it for comfort reasons, but they forget that it's going to change the sound sometimes, and a lot of the times for the worse. Josh says, I think the ringing varies from unit to unit. Some people get really bad ones. Yeah, I must have gotten a really bad one. Yeah, pads are huge. In fact, I think modding, just changing the pads on the 1060 even alone is way different. Results in some totally different effects, which, you know, I just never bothered to try. But whatever I reviewed, like, I say this a lot, but there is variation from headphone to headphone, more so with some brands than others and some models than others. So if I have a really scathing review, you are totally valid in completely doubting it. But you have to know that that's exactly how I felt about that unit. So again, if you might be playing a lottery, then you might end up with something that sounds like something I don't like. You may get something better. I have no idea. So let's see. If I attempted to put over-ear pads on the Audeze sign, I never gave that a shot. Let's see. Will I ever review the M4U1? No, because the M4U1 is prone to breaking very easily. Apparently it cracks. It's not made so well. Rather review one of the newer versions of that. So I prefer velour or leather. I definitely prefer velour. Excuse me, sorry. But some headphones really require leather pads, especially closed backs, because they have to isolate. One of the only pads that kind of bucks that trend is a DT, not pads, models that bucks that trend is a DT770, but they have very thickly padded and firm velour pads. It's not really quite the same. Let's see. Magni 3 is overkill for the 400i and the 650, or is it nearly enough? I think it's plenty. Never really had a problem running the 650 at least. Do I miss the old DT770s I once had? Yeah, I do. I don't understand why that one sounded so good. It was like the darkest Beyerdynamic I ever tried. It was really bizarre. I bought it used on eBay, and the pads were destroyed, so I replaced them. And even after that, it's not as bright as most other 770s I've heard. I have no idea why. Still don't know. Yeah, this is a good point. If you pay for Audeze pads and then do other mods, and you're already up to a $400 headphone, which is also modded, and not quite the same as an out-of-box one. And at that point, would you rather buy, a Sandara, an LCD2 Classic? That's kind of also one of my points with the 1060. I'm sure some mods are cheaper than others, but if you try going all in with the mods, you're already going to pay more money for that thing. So that puts you in a different price range, which can, skew things a little bit. But, put out a list somewhere of cans I want to review and should have sent in. Yeah. You may definitely steal that idea, Josh. That's pretty awesome, because you and me both are both dependent on fans sending in headphones for sure. I don't want to buy and return stuff anymore at this point at the hobby. The reason I bought the LCD2 Classic is I liked it already, but I'm also going to review it. And so I definitely need to make a list. I need what do you think, like a public Google Drive document or something like that? I could totally do that. I think I'll probably do that after this. Great idea. What do I think of the Army ADI2 deck? Is that the one that's got the awesome display on it? Because I want that, if that's the one. I really want a deck with a display on it. I don't know why I'm obsessed with seeing the sampling rate, and like that thing has such an awesome display. Just so cool. I have no idea how it measures. Hopefully good. It seems like people are starting to show up with that more and more on the subreddit. Let's see. There's a dark mode. Oh man, I'm gonna have to look up the price on this next. Mass Drop Jubilee. Have not heard it yet. 58X. Someone please send me that. I'm gonna put. That's probably gonna be like the first thing on my list of headphones I want people to send. Okay, that's a good question. Do you hear a crackling sound when you put on the LCD2 Classic and pushing air through the drivers? Now, you're not supposed to, and I actually read this from an Audeze email, you're not supposed to put the pads on your head and then compress them. They tell you specifically not to do that because it puts a lot of pressure on the diaphragm, and you don't want to do that. You can actually damage them. That's something that I have to make sure I mention, because I've had other people, I think the last Q&A, people were like really adamant of me saying that, because planar magnetic drivers are these do rely a bit on a seal despite them being open back. And so if you try to push on the pads while you have them on, you can actually damage the drivers apparently. Yeah, EL8 definitely was affected a lot too. The close back, I think you probably should have noticed as well. That thing really like sucks to your head. It's really bizarre. And it's funny, I can actually tell that I'm pretty sure the LCDX drivers are thinner and more delicate than the LCD2 Classic, because I don't push on these things, but when I put them on and I take them off, you can kind of hear the sound be like, ouch, we just got pulled away from a seal, and changes hugely as you take them off, and then they go back to normal as soon as they release their seal. Even if you do it really slowly, you can hear that happen on the driver. It's weird, but I think that's just the way Audezes are, because they have to seal like that. But yeah, what you don't do is you put them on and then you press them, and that's very bad. But I don't hear a crinkling sound or a crackling sound. It's more of like I can feel the air pressure change kind of in my ears. It's really strange for the Audezes. If I find the Magni 3 overkill, what do I prefer instead? I mean, I want overkill. I want something that has more power than I'll ever need, and at the same time has a low enough output impedance that I can use it and isn't too colored all at the same time. That's all I'm really looking for from an amp. Which leads me to, I want to change this Modi multibit to a topping D30, because objectively it measures well, supposedly. Let's see. A list of best to worst headphones. Now, speaking of that, Josh has a list he always puts in his description of his favorite picks, which is a really smart idea. Picks at different price ranges. And that's something I probably need to put together, a list of headphones I want to review, that I need people to send me, and a list of best headphones for each price range that I think of. And I definitely need to do that. Best measurements from ASR. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping ASR is legit. Some people are against ASR's measurements, and I was talking about that earlier in the stream. Like, why? I still don't understand it, because if you have access to something like that, an audio precision analyzer, like, why would you try to fake measurements with that? Wouldn't it be great to see, to be able to use that as a genuine baseline? So I don't understand why Amir would be faking the measurements, but maybe it's because HeadFi is invading. Yeah, someone just said that. The only people against ASR are shills for shit audio, and I'm still thinking that that's the case. I think HeadFi just invaded the subreddit and is like, no, wrong, Magni and Modi are awesome. Oh, really? The RME ADI2 also measurements awesome in ASR? Okay. Wow. No, I cannot be opening up my wallet this often to buy things. I just bought the 2 Classic, and now already today I'm looking at topping D30s, and this oh, stop it. You guys are bad. Couple more questions and then I'll wrap it up. Let's see. Josh says, LCD2 Classic or LCDX? Yeah, definitely the LCDX for me too. I don't know if this lines up with your impressions. I was talking about my impressions relatively early on in the stream, but I think the biggest difference between the two, that it takes a while to really realize, you have to go back and forth a bunch of times, but the LCDX has so much more resolution. I thought the LCD2 Classic sounded absolutely awesome when I first got it. When I didn't have the LCD, the LCD2C sounded absolutely awesome before I got the LCDX in from a viewer. But then I heard this, and went back and forth, and was like, crap, there's already something better that's in my same house. So that's what I think of the LCDX. They also sound a little bit different frequency response wise, but I've managed to calibrate them actually with EQ very similarly. Yeah, the 2C is smooth. It still has good resolution, but it's just not quite there in the mids and highs to the LCDX. The LCDX is actually, if you like the LCDX, Josh, by the way, the LCD4 is the same kind of sound, but even more resolution. It is nutso. I love that thing, and that's why. Let's see. Have I tried the one more triple driver? No, not yet. Does the top of your head touch the spring metal on the LCD2Cs? You know, if it does, I haven't noticed it. Oh, you have the LCD3. Oh man, you're gonna have to slip me the name of the person who owns that so I can ask them to get one too. Or if you don't mind, you could ask them and be like, hey, can I send this to Metal 571 next? That would be great. Oh, there's a square going on between us all. That would be nice if I could get an Audeze package going around to all of us major reviewers here. I'd love to have that in-house. Because the other LCD3 I reviewed before was just nowhere near as good. I don't know why. It's very strange. What else we got here? Blah, blah, blah. I had a gaming Razer headset once. Nobody knows what bad sound really is before they have heard a few Razers. Man, is it bad. That might be the best comment I think I've received on this stream yet. It's very true, though. It's very true. I remember the first time I tried a Razer Kraken in a Best Buy. I put it on, and I don't even care. It didn't even matter what was playing through it at the moment. I think it was probably music or something, but it literally sounded like I was underwater. It was so bad. There was like, people talk about the Sennheiser Veil. Listen to a Razer Kraken. Not that you really would ever want to, but if you do, that is like literally a blanket over an HD 600. Like, it is horrible. I don't even know if it was music. Yeah. I don't know if it was music or like, because I usually play like gaming sounds through those stupid things too. And the stores. And that is just so bad. Yeah, the last time I was thinking Razer was cool was when I was like 17 or 18 trying to buy gaming peripherals. I'm like, ooh, that looks cool. It's got a light on it. Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you buy one Razer product, then you kind of want to match the rest of your desk. You know, you go through that kind of phase, and all the other products are so bad, and it's just like, why do I even bother with this? So yeah. That's why I buy Logitech mice now. And it's funny, Josh knows. I can say that. You know, like Logitech mice are way, way good now. They've like destroyed the rest of the industry. So awesome. I stopped reviewing mice a long time ago, but I used to. Let's see. Vanilla LCD2 versus the X. You know, the vanilla LCD2s and 3s I've heard have not been as good as either of these two. The 2C or the LCDX. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was hearing much older units, or if that's just the way they're tuned. I didn't give the LCD3 a very good review at all because I thought it was way overpriced. But these two sound way better than that did. I just don't get it. Especially in terms of resolution. That was the main thing. There was so much grain on the LCD3 that I had. I just have no idea why. Audeze is definitely the kind of brand where you need multiple examples of like the same headphone because they change a lot over the years too. They make a lot of revisions. Sometimes they don't tell you about it either. You just kind of find out later. Let's see. You have an 8-year-old Razer mouse, and it developed a double click after 1 year. I stopped using Razer because I had a Death Adder 3.5G way back in the day, and I'm kid you not, I think it was 1 month after I bought it, brand new, the scroll wheel started double scrolling with each scroll. And I sent it back. I was like, okay, Razer, fix it. And they did. They RMA'd it. And I got a replacement. That was fine. 1 month later, the exact same thing happened to the replacement. I'm like, okay, I'm sending it back again. And then I got another one. And the scroll wheel had the problem again after a month. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. I sold the last one off to some sucker on eBay or whatever. Because I swear that has to be some kind of design flaw, or that batch was absolute crap. That scroll wheel is just, oh, so bad. And then yeah, their switches do the same thing. Longest I've ever had a mouse last, I had a Logitech G5. This is probably dating me. Back in, what was that, 07, 08? And that was the longest lasting mouse I ever had. I was pretty hard on my mice. I was a very low sensitivity gamer, so I was always slamming them down all the time. And yeah, that one finally started double clicking. It took like 2.5 years though. Some sucker on eBay. Yeah, that's what happened. I mean, Death Adders. I mean, what can you expect though from buying a used Razer product? I think people hopefully knew how bad some of those could be without looking broken. Would I recommend the 800 or the 800S variant, or the LCD2 for someone interested in EQ? I would start with something closer to your preference. In my case, that would be the LCD2, but it could be different for you. I don't know. Some people like the HT800 without EQ. It's a thing. Logitech is the best mouse sensor for, I wouldn't say very cheap, but relatively cheap. Definitely true. Oh, Razer does have the shortest warranty. Oh yeah, does Logitech still carry those 3-year warranties or 2-year warranties or whatever they used to have? I think it was 2 years, which just destroyed everybody else. It was always double everyone else's warranty. In Norway, everything has an obligatory 5-year warranty. Wow, please, why can't we have these things in the US? I've heard of that. Other countries have required warranties to be that long. Logitech Unlimited Scroll Wheel makes scrolling pages fun. Ready? That's an MX Master. I love that. This one automatically, it goes, so I don't know if you guys know about this. The MX Master is really cool because you can scroll it regularly, and then as soon as you scroll it fast enough, it automatically unlocks. And then when it stops, it will lock back up again. There it goes. Very cool. I really like the shape of it too. Shape of the Death Adder is superb though. Yeah, it is. It's always very comfortable, I found back in the day when I used to use one. After comments about SBAF shilling shit audio, I'm being really doubtful of buying the Lyra 3. I would be very doubtful about any shit audio product, to be honest. Again, SBAF and Headphone, they're going to shill shit audio all day long, so I wouldn't read anything they say about it. I actually, oh, by the way, I actually offered to send I'm using a Behringer, someone from Germany, tell me how to pronounce that, UMC 404 HD right now as the interface, and I have my old Focusrite Scarlett Solo that I stopped using because the driver support is just awful now. And I offered to send both of those over to Amir at ASR, so we'll see how these measure. I know the UMC 204 HD measures real well. Behringer? Okay, thank you. And so I wanted to see if the UMC 404 HD measures similarly, because the UMC 404 HD as a DAC could be a good value too. And it has external power, which may change things, so we'll see what happens. Which would be funny if I hook up an interface, having a better DAC on an interface. This one cost me only $70. A better DAC on an interface than a Modi Multibit. How is that for good quality? For shit audio. Rocket Jump. Oh man, that brings back memories. Wow. Anyone on here ever go to OCN Mice? Oh boy, that would be hilarious because I used to post on there all the time. Yeah, that was fun back in the day. Let's see. Maybe I'll take one more question if I can find one. Blah 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 blah. Places to test headphones. Guitar Center, yeah, actually Guitar Center does have a good variety of genres for demo songs. Sometimes every time I'm in there, I just play with the headphones for a while first before I go over to the guitars. Do I prefer DT880 or K702? You know, they're both very good. The K702 is a really interesting flavor headphone, though. Its 2K peak is bizarre, but I kind of like that for certain cases. They're both good in their own ways. My DT880 review was not very good because that was like the first review I did. So if you want to compare those two, look at maybe my K712 review, which is sort of similar to the 702, not quite as resolving, or more resolving than the 702, and then my Bayer Group review will cover the DT880 better. Do I find IPAs to be too hoppy? Yeah, I'm not a hoppy beer kind of guy, actually. So I generally don't drink IPAs. That is true. Someone's been here since the beginning. All right, guys. Thanks for stopping by. It's great to talk to you guys again. Probably we'll do another one of these. We'll see. Is every 2 weeks good? I don't know. Maybe once a month is probably better. But anyone who misses this one, you know, maybe I'll do Sunday next in 2 weeks or something like that instead of Saturday. And yeah, Hawaiian shirt. I don't have Hawaiian shirts, but I do have one button down that I wanna wear next time. Stouts and Belgians. Yeah, Belgians and German beers. That's my favorites. Let's see. All right, I'll take one last question. Would an audio interface be the best thing to control powered monitors and headphones? Depends. If you have a high impedance headphone, I wouldn't use a audio interface to power it. I would use a separate amp. But generally speaking, if you're just monitoring, that would be the thing to use with monitoring headphones and powered monitors, yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Hopefully next week we'll have the Audeze comparison there, because I'm excited to do that too. These are great headphones. I am totally a fan, and more details to come. All right. Thanks again, guys. Take care.